This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
So I'm going to call to order the June 27th Public Safety Building Committee. The meeting is being recorded and we do have a quorum. So, let's see. No members of the public here, so we'll move on to the June 10th minutes. We don't have copies of those. Did everybody have
I have one.
a chance to review prior?
I wasn't able to open it.
Oh, really?
I did. I thought they were excellent.
I thought they were excellent.
I saw them and liked what I saw.
Yeah, you did a really great job, Mark. So grab your pen.
This arm wrestling thing we're going to have here.
Well, so we'll address that, but first let's review the minutes. I guess, given that some people need to review them, would you like to read them, Mark? We've done that in the past. Do we want to take time to do that? I think it's the only way we can approve them.
They're going to pass around already, Woody?
Take them.
Well,
we can do other business and then come back to approving
okay.
after people have read it.
Okay, that may be more time
Just
efficient.
I'm the only person who hasn't read it.
Well, Barry, you said, oh, you have read it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, John, yes, and Reggie, you
I've read
read it? Okay.
Yeah,
And
online.
I see the chief reading them now, so may we move on while you're reading them?
Yep.
Yeah, we can do that and then come back on.
Scott, your turn for land update.
Something happened earlier this week, I forget. Well, that's right, the vote passed, and so now the fun part begins. So we've started ordering the title search. Already it's on the registry for land acquisition, so we have to post that because it's a unique piece of property. We have the purchase and sale, which is all signed. We are hoping to close at the latest September 30th, which is the latest date. Hopefully we can do it sooner. We are working on the wetlands delineation and any other environmental issues we're going to have to take a look at as well. And Jen is our treasurer is going to start the borrowing process. So
everything is moving forward now.
yes,
Pace.
yeah.
It's going, it's in its final run to conclusion.
Yeah. So hopefully if nothing raises its ugly head between now and September, we're good, but yeah.
Just out of curiosity, what was the vote?
It was 628.
28.
It's kind of like 201.
404.
Oh,
628 to 404 in favor.
Yeah. So a lot of people turned out. I mean, it was, for an off-season, off-schedule kind of election, plus the beginning of summer,
Now, don't be so modest. 1,000 people, over 1,000 people is stunning for any town election. Not just...
I'm actually going to go back and take a look from past town meeting elections and just sort of see what, how many people came to various other town elections, just in general. I'm just curious what our
think of
attendance level has been.
Election that took place, what, a month or so ago?
Sure, yeah.
What was that, 300?
Like 340 or something like that.
Wow.
Right. Yeah,
So I think we should really commend Scott and the select board for the excellent publicity work that they did to make people aware. I think people really responded. They reacted to the excellent coverage of it. So.
And I think, what was different too in terms of this one versus the previous election for the town officials was we sent out about 1,000 mail-in ballots each time. And I think the return, I forget now, but the return on the town election one was minuscule. It was like, oh, is this even worth the postage, really?
I know you said that last meeting.
It's like 88 cents per envelope or something silly to send this stuff out. But we did do mail-in ballots for this one, and thank goodness we did, because we had 600 mail-in ballots. out of the whole vote.
Well, it shows when people are informed, they are willing to be engaged.
Yeah, so that was
And
pretty
voice an
amazing. So I
opinion.
think we can say we got a return on our mail-in ballots this time around,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, many thanks to
Yeah.
the select board and to Scott.
Yeah. And I think just one last thing, so this actually represents, if we figure we've got around 4,500 households, or registered voters rather, not households, registered voters in town. So this is not quite 25%, but pushing there. So which is, again, quite acceptable, I think, so.
It's better than anticipated, I have to say. I'm not sure, I can't remember,
I don't know.
other than a general election, when
Yeah.
there has been such a turnout, so.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a little research just out of curiosity.
Sure. Well, you can report at
I
our
will,
next
I will.
meeting.
Yeah. But we had fun doing the little video. Almost got run over, but hey.
Other than that,
Well, thank you, and Scott, your information on the town website was great. So, anyway, moving on, are you good with the minutes? Yeah, having read them now.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so may I have a motion to accept the minutes?
so moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, now I sent a note to the chief, and I put a call into him today too, hoping that he'd have a minute to give me a brochure update. So I guess we'll have to skip over that unless Chris, or Chief, he conveyed some progress to you on that?
On the brochure, no,
Yeah.
not since our last,
Because that is due to go out right away. That was my understanding from the last meeting, that that would go out right after the election. We'll just have to check. Do you know if the chief is out of town, or?
I think he's taking a vacation day today and tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then I'm glad he did not respond to my messaging.
yeah.
All right, then public engagement update. So here we are, we have land, almost have land. And for our public engagement, we have the brochure. We need to plan another public forum. And we talked about a second brochure. So, well, I should backtrack just a little bit to the present brochure. Do you remember, and maybe we'll have to wait for the chief, is Package Store going to bill the donor directly for that?
I
I don't know if he ever said.
don't know about that. I
Okay.
kind of assume they might, but I don't know that for sure.
Okay. I was just wondering the other day whether that was a sort of a committed, whether everything was in order for that.
I don't know that that was, I don't remember us talking about it in that level of detail, but
Okay.
it would make sense if, they know who the donor is, I would think.
Yes, and they, a Paisano requested credit
Right.
too on the brochure,
Correct.
so.
So I don't see why they couldn't do that, other than coming and making another
Right.
step this way.
Is the donation just for the printing or postage also?
It was a sum of $2,500, and so I believe that was to cover both printing and postage.
I believe that was the same.
I think so.
Okay, so as far as proceeding with public engagement, is there any, well, now our work is cut out for us, right? And who feels a bit daunted?
Can I ask
Please.
a question being new?
Please.
So it sounds like the committee is a little shocked that it's going to cost so much money to build the building. has this committee all agreed that at any price we're going to do it, or at some price it's too much? Because I think $40 million is crazy high. Not that it could be lower, I'm just saying it's a lot of money. And I'm not sure I would vote for it. And my neighbors, I don't think, would vote for it. So, you know, we seem to be all full speed ahead, but I think there's going to be a lot of resistance to that number. Not that we don't need a new fire station and police station, but that number is just mind-boggling.
So that was one thing that I was going to address. So we'll take that up now, because that will help determine if and when we're going to set a date for a special town meeting, and then when the publicity, the extra forum and the next brochure will come out. It is shocking, but I think the price has been justified by HKT. I mean, they have designed an up-to-date and sufficient facility for us. Do people agree with me in that regard?
Yeah, I think we'll go backwards a little bit. I mean, we were tasked with preparing a feasibility study, and we felt we weren't the expertise to figure out what the price range could be, because we could have said $10. Sure. We had a tent. So we felt we would leave that to the experts and try to be totally transparent, that we empathize to our architect, and even during the interview process, that price was an extremely important aspect of it. We trusted the architect in the feasibility study to again follow our direction, that price was crucial, but they would only give us what was needed based upon interviews, and what was needed and required based upon code. And so that's so where we left it, and then the numbers came in, and as I said, we were shocked.
Yeah.
And much of it apparently is COVID, COVID related, or it came, the escalation rate has jumped, whether it's caused by COVID or not necessarily, I can't say. But also the energy codes have changed. So there are multiple factors. Certainly building costs.
I don't disagree with any of that. I don't know that you could build the building for any less than what they told us.
Right.
So,
that's of that size.
yeah.
So there's the fundamental question. Do we move forward with a town meeting, a vote, with worried that it's not going to pass? Now, I think I'm right in saying that Congress often doesn't put a bill forward, piece of legislation forward, until they know it's going to pass, right? So what happens if we can't get a 2/3 majority at special town meeting? Where are we at that time?
Is it a 2/3 meeting or
At special
majority?
town meeting, it's 2/3 majority, and then at election, it's simple. So can Scott or Chris say what happens if it fails?
I think there's a lot of options, but if the complex as a whole, the building fails, I don't think there's any question that the fire department needs a new facility. It might mean looking at cheaper alternatives, maybe building a fire station first and then a police department next to it in a few years, or building 2 buildings at a bare minimum and maybe connecting it in the future as an expansion.
Which in the long run is less cost efficient.
Right, it makes more sense to have one building, absolutely. But I don't think, the amount of time that the fire department is spending over there is difficult. It just can't go on. I mean, we've all walked through it, and we need to, at this point, I think pretty much any building is better than what you have now.
Yeah.
Chief. That's not what we should be aiming for, though. We should be aiming for a building that's going to serve the needs for 50 or 75 years. But yeah, I think it's at a point where it's almost an emergency.
I think I would say, just going back through the report again, I mean, I read it when it first came out very quickly, and then I read it again a bit over this last weekend. They reminded us in here, I think, that, the scope of what they were doing wasn't to produce the final design of a public safety facility, right? We've got what we've all talked about in terms of our needs, our functionality, what we'd like to see. Definitely some of the building code stuff, I don't think it ever factored into our consideration earlier on in terms of having to be, EV ready and solar ready on the roof and all that kind of stuff, but that's what it is. So, but I think somewhere in the report, toward the end of their narrative, even though it's a lengthy report, it's a lot of attachments, right? So there's about, 30 pages of narrative. And in there, they talked about how they got to those costs, or how their cost estimator got there with, some of the escalating percentage factors and so forth. But, there's a contingency factor in there of 10%, for example, which we may or may not need. I mean, there's other things that they put in it, like a 25% escalation, which, may be high. I mean, it feels to me like they put in the highest amount rather than this is the floor. So I think there's room to back off what's currently out there as a potential price. I mean, it feels like it to me anyway. Because, this just gives us the vision of what might be possible or what the cost might be, but it's not. Nothing is final for sure, and I think it still, requires certain choices that we might have to make. I hear what Scott's saying, but honestly, I think, building the facility all at once is the only cost-effective way to do this. I mean, I can't imagine doing it differently, frankly. I think that would be really hard to do and save any money. So I think, toward page, I think it was like page 30 or something, they had I thought it was a fairly good thing. And keep in mind, too, that they put in the soft costs and the hard costs. So it's not just the construction, it's all the stuff inside, too.
Right.
Right? Which is, so when you're looking at all that, and I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was all the permitting, the legal fees.
Very inclusive.
Equipment and furniture and everything is included in this price. So it's not just the brick and mortar, I don't believe, the way I read this.
No.
Turnkey.
Yeah.
Now, did they break down, all these green energy codes, how much that adds to the bill?
We talked about it a
I mean,
little bit
could
last
they,
time, I think.
is that something they did, or?
Well, I think they looked at the alternates that we required them to, but I think they have to include the energy bill. I don't know why they would have given us something that they...
Well, yeah, I mean, I know it needs to be included, but did they say how much that added to the
I don't...
cost?
It might have been in one of the support documents, I'm not sure if it was.
I think when they were comparing to Lee, they talked about it a bit. Yeah, I think we talked about it last time. But,
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of on the state to some degree that they force you to do all these things, and it makes everything unaffordable. It's just more rules about it.
It may be something in the, one of the appendices here that's, I honestly didn't read through all the appendices again. But it could be somewhere hidden in there. Be worth checking into, or if they haven't done it. I mean, this is just a draft report, right? So we should be giving them some feedback.
Yes, and I have told them that we would be getting back to them with comments and questions. So, so where to go? I mean, you say you may not support it, and you don't think your neighbors will. And
I think, I mean, if you look at what's happening in Belchertown and Amherst, all these communities, they get these incredible numbers and they vote them down because the numbers are so big.
Agawam did approve the high school, though.
Agawam did?
Yeah, 71%.
All right.
Yeah.
And Greenfield, Chris, you sent out the Greenfield Fire Station cost of 20 million, and that was just for a fire station, and Lee has just approved theirs.
There's no grants whatsoever available for anything?
Is what?
Apparently not.
Grants? Oh, there can be. I mean, yeah, no, I think the, it was actually a senior center in Worthington that got a green energy grant for something, not for construction, but some of the green energy stuff that had to happen. So, yeah, no, there are. Definitely, we have to go explore everything. I mean, it's going to be a a fundraising initiative, I think, on our part as well. I don't think we should just assume we're going to borrow all this. I think we need some fundraising campaign going on, but grant for sure. I mean, we're going to be keeping an eye out for any kind of federal infrastructure type grant. I mean, there's money out there somewhere. We just haven't been able to figure out how we can get our hands on it yet, because there's money from a lot of these, federal bills that go to the state level, and then it's getting sort of farmed out, but it's for bigger, it's like bridges and roads and stuff like that, airports, whatever else. And so finding stuff that hits construction is a little bit elusive so far.
Did Belchertown get a chunk of money? If they had moved forward, they would have gotten a chunk of money.
Yeah, I think it was 40 or 50 million from the school building association, and the voters would have to be like 80 or 90.
Right.
So it's EAC or whatever.
I guess one of the ways I look at it is our annual budget is $20 million for the town. This is twice that. So it's 2 years worth of expense, or 2 years worth of revenue, however you look at it. That's just a lot of money. So we had our cost efficiencies committee yesterday. We're looking for $10,000 here, $10,000 there, and then we're going to spend $40 million and have that in debt for 20, 30 years. That's a big number on the town. School costs are going up. I'm just giving the other side of what people might be thinking.
Well, of course, it's very
because
legitimate.
we can't just go out there and say, "Oh, this is going to be great, just do it."
Sure. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just to answer Chief's question, just looking at the budget page, they broke it down. So there's two things that are still in here in this budget. There's 29 million total budget, if that's the right figure. We're working on the construction part. They still have the carports, the 2 carports, and the shooting range in those costs. So that's like 2 million right there.
Right, so in some chart, they've taken that down to 27 million.
All right.
But it would seem as though that would be in the report,
Yeah.
right?
I guess,
That's
I'm
one
not
thing I'll-
seeing for sure. And then, but on the alternates, to Mark's point, so the EV charging stations, that was an add at 289,000. The PV on the roof, 600,000. Rainwater harvesting, 395. Green roof, install a green roofing over the admin wing, $1.4 million. So there's stuff there that can be, I'm sure,
Not
massaged.
taken out, just
Not taken out.
Those were add-ons.
Yeah.
Those are add-ons, right,
Oh,
yeah,
those-
but that's the level of costing
Yeah.
that came out for those kinds of things, so they did break it down there.
Yeah.
But there's the kind of thing, though, that, I mean, there's lots of stuff out there for electric vehicles. I mean, there is money there, it's just gonna take searching for, some grants for certain things, and have it timed such that they aren't things that have to be spent within a year, which is the challenge with a lot of these grants. Our time frame is really short to spend this money, and unless we can get like a 2-year grant or something, even grants can be problematic, but we could, I think, find some money to start, looking at chucking this stuff down. So, I mean, it's a matter of how we can present. I mean, it's been hard to do anything until having a place to put our feet. It's really hard to write a grant application, and it's like, well, we're thinking about, and we might put it here, and they don't want to hear that. So now I feel like, all right, we got something a little bit more concrete at least, and especially as we finalize the study, we've got something that we can present to organizations or the governments, whomever, state or feds, to build our case, I guess. I mean, all you can do is try, but certainly we have to go for any kind of grants that seem applicable to this.
But we won't know of the receipt of any before we ask the town to approve the project. I don't think, correct?
Doubtful, yeah.
Right.
Correct, yeah. But I think we have to talk too about, so if we have until September to close, then what are the next steps? I mean, what do we need to do in the meantime in terms of, when does this get finalized, this report get finalized? And then what can we do in the meantime? Can we start doing an RFP to find the owner's project manager, for example? If that comes before comes before the architect, does it usually, or?
We have to get the funding, which is the biggest.
Hurdle we were talking about the last meeting. I mean,
Yeah.
How do you get the funding
Mhm.
on $40 million if you don't have current financial statements?
And one of the things, it's going to cost a couple million for repairing it, so do we want to, I know the chief had mentioned it, do we want to go forward with just getting the architectural money and the engineering money and then have everything done and then go, or do we want to lump it all in together?
Well, he went before finance, and you joined him, so why don't,
Yeah.
you were there, you can say firsthand.
Right. At that meeting, we talked about, just getting money for design. And the knee-jerk reaction was, well, we're not going to buy half of something that we don't even know it's going to be real. Either let's do the whole thing and find out what we're buying. Let's don't spend $1 million on something that is not real. So it was either let's go for the whole ball of wax or not go. And that was the overall consensus of the finance committee.
Okay. So then I go back, then I'll back up part of my statement. So if we're closing at the end of September, what would we need to have a town meeting, a special town meeting? What do we have to have in place to go again before the voters and present this?
We have the feasibility study, which would give us the base for that,
Finish, yeah.
And the land.
and the land. And we'd have to just use the feasibility study estimates on what it would cost for the architect and then the actual building costs. So it might be upwards of, we might be asking for upwards of $35 or $40 million. It's kind of chicken before the egg type of thing. How do we design something and get a real solid amount of money that we're going to spend without spending money?
Right.
So there's no easy answer for that. I mean, just designing it's going to cost a significant amount of money, even if it's not for you, even if it's $20 million or $10 million, it's still going to cost $1 million.
Right. This question has crossed my mind, and Mark, you probably have experience with this, and you too, perhaps. Would the cost of designing it be significantly reduced if we went forward with this plan that HKT, the degree of development that they have brought before us? Could we save money by using this design?
Yeah, I mean, again, we call it a feasibility study. It's a little less than a schematic design.
Yes, it is.
And, and looking at all architectural fees, they have schematic design, and then they have a preliminary design, and then they go 4 or 5 different stages. And the first stage is usually around 15% of the cost of the feasibility study. So, yeah, we spent $180,000 for them. You think about the design fee is going to be in excess of $1 million. So, yeah, we could possibly save that $180,000 on a brand new person coming in. But if we hire somebody separate, or if we made a drastic change, design fee is not going to change that much. That if we hire them from the outset, yeah, we'll save something, but not anything significant.
Rather inconsequential.
Yeah, I mean, new architects can come in, they're going to want to do their homework as well. They're not just going to rubber stamp.
Well, that's why I wondered, because HKT has done a fair amount of work. And I wondered if they could just further the development of it and help us significantly. But apparently from what you're saying, that's not. It would be some.
Yeah, it would be some. Again, we'd have to go up for a public RFP again.
Yes, of course, of course.
Full open competition.
Sure. Yeah, and I think we're not bound to take HKT, right?
No,
Yeah, so
no.
we can go out, we should go out.
Well, you have to go out.
Have to go out.
But I just wondered if in our considerations, if, given that they have developed it to this point, whether proceeding with this particular plan would benefit us.
Yeah, I think comments from last meeting was, okay, so if we shave $6 million off of this thing, it's still not $15 million, which got voted down overwhelmingly last time. So I think we can, lots of ways. I mean, I mentioned before, we can, have add alternates and deduct alternates. Can we build, a 2-bay? Can we build a 1-bay with a 10 roofed temporary bay for something? No, I mean, I'm just throwing things out there, to hopefully bring the cost down around landscaping and whatever would be, and staging. with provisions to add on. I've seen it quite a few times. We did it in North Hadley with the fire station. We designed a site with the ability to add a bay on, which would cut some prices. But again, it's going to cut some dollars down, but it's still going to be a big
And in the end, also in the long run, cost more.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
So really the most cost-effective way of doing it is just as it's being presented at this time. And they have made I think we can agree, disagree with me if you want to. I think that they have designed a very efficient and beautiful facility. Chief, how do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's, a nice building. Doesn't really have a lot of bells and whistle extra stuff. So, I mean,
Tell you a story. We designed with a lot of schools, and early on the architects and I would go and we would talk to the school committees, and we would talk to all the teachers, the athletic directors and superintendents, and they would say, well, what do you want? And they would mention they want a track, they want a football field, they want an auditorium, they want a stage. And they would say, well, that's great. What do you absolutely have to have? What you can barely live with? So they would go through, well, we have to have at least this. And then we would come back and say, okay, that's a $60 million school. Now what do you really need? And I'll whittle it down, and then this puts the burden on the people who know, Chief, I don't know what you need. Is there some way to limit the scope of what we have and still wind up with an efficient? I think between you and the Chief and HKT, I think you whittled that thing down.
Yes, that's already been done, is what you're saying. Yes.
I think you've already taken the fat off the
We have done a lot,
bone.
and I know certainly Chief Illingsworth has been very insistent about not having any extra anything that, would cause a negative reaction. And I think, too, that, as they mentioned in the report, the contingency, for example, so there's 10% figured in here for contingency. They said that usually goes down as the project gets further designed, right? So that won't be that much. And they've put in when was the last thing done? 15, right? So 8 years at least. They put in a 7 to 10% per year.
Yeah.
So that too, people have to realize that this is partly just the cost of things.
Hat on things being less, because
I agree.
in my experience, things always end up being more.
Well, every year that goes by.
Every year that goes by,
It's going to get worse, yeah.
It's hard to, the contingencies are tough because they're there for a reason, and things come up and you don't think about them.
Something unexpected, for sure.
I mean, I think one of my points is if the group decides that we want to support this, we should be in a position to answer the question, well, what other alternatives did you consider? What else could you do? I mean, if you had $2 million and gave it to the chief to fix the fire department, the fire building, could he do something with that? Maybe the answer is no, but they're going to want to know that we've thought through alternatives. The options are you leave everything the way it is and live with it, which nobody seems to like. You take some money and fix up the two buildings so they're more usable than they are today. You build a new building, or maybe even talk about consolidating with another town. I mean, I kind of want to know that as a voter. Have you considered what it means? Because again, $40 million is a huge step for the town to take.
I think it's been determined that the existing buildings will never be code compliant. Am I correct? So any amount of money thrown into this building will not make it a facility that is code compliant or sufficient for this town.
The garage doors are too small.
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes
It's
once you
bigger
start
than the entire
spending money and make improvements, you may cross a line where they would say, now you have to be code compliant.
Right.
And it costs
It's like
even
15%,
more.
then you got to bring everything up.
Yeah.
I'll just toss this out. Many of you weren't on the committee when Chief Workman was pushing to get this station inspected. who was he wanting to inspect it? Oh, you weren't even here, Chris.
OSHA?
Say that again?
Yeah. Chief Workman was pushing to have it inspected and,
Condemned?
yeah. Essentially.
Essentially, yeah.
That
It's
is.
a double-edged sword. It was
Yeah.
ammunition, but also it could be a Pandora's box.
Yes, but, so, that is right. But he was, I mean, it is to that point, right, where it would be condemned if it were inspected?
I don't know. I was just looking at some of the photos from your electric and plumbing issues and other stuff.
I don't know if condemned is right, well, it's usually a structural issue, but I mean, is it non-OSHA compliant or something?
Right, there's no heating. You have to use those electric heaters.
There's no hot water.
There's no
I
hot
mean,
water.
those are fixable
Right.
things, though. If you can fix them without triggering something, that would be, it's probably, you know, we talk about capital improvements, I mean, that's stuff that should have been done over the years. Now we're in a position where the buildings are, and there are other bigger things, but they should have been, that stuff should have been taken care of. I'm not looking at you,
No,
I've only
no.
been here for 2 months, but.
So,
but once you start
inspected
doing
by
that-
whom, and is there not a routine?
I can't, you
For
know
the-
what, it was a long time ago in the process. You were on the committee. Do you remember any more details than I do? I remember that he alone thought it was a good idea. And I think it was, he presented it to force our hand, to force the town's hand into something better. So I'm just mentioning it because, well, I don't know why, it came to mind. as a, you know, it came to mind in response to what you're saying about trying to Band-Aid this one
Yeah, I
into
have no
shape.
doubt somebody would take it, somebody at the state would take advantage of that and say, oh, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, and it's gonna be millions of dollars. And then we come back to the argument, well, if you try to fix the old one, it's gonna be too much money, so you gotta build a new one. And then the town, voters feel like they've been backed into a corner. You gotta pay $40 million, or we're not gonna have a fire station or a police station. And nobody likes that.
It's the voters we need to convince, and
Right.
we've already got our video and the tours and stuff. I think, by and large, most of our citizens know that it's not compliant.
Right, but Reggie's point is that we all know that, but even Reggie is reluctant to vote in favor of it at $40 million. So that's a pretty big problem, and I was going to talk about that also at this meeting. This committee needs to decide whether we're going to go forward with this, and if not, alternatives. But when we do decide, we have to go forward with all conviction.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have to be completely committed to seeing it pass and not have any doubts. We're all shocked by the price, but quite frankly, with what has happened, I don't think this is unusual for building costs over the last years. It's just what is
Right. I
at
agree
this
with that.
time, and also finding the construction companies to do the work also is harder, and that probably takes costs up too. Am I right on that,
The fewer
Mark?
bidders you have, the higher prices.
So it's not a great time.
I would disagree with the way you put that just a little bit.
Okay,
I mean,
great.
If you had committee members who personally weren't in favor of it, but got behind the committee to say, you know, our objective is to present this to the voters as best we can. I think that's what you want on your committee, not necessarily that people are going to be supportive as voters themselves. Because
But what
we're
we
going to kick me off the committee if...
No, that's not what I'm saying, Reggie. What I'm saying is that we cannot go before the public in a wishy-washy way and say, this is too expensive, but we need you to pay for it anyway, right? I mean, we have to go forward with, as a committee, with conviction that it's an important, very important, mandatory.
Well, you know, I'd be careful with that because it doesn't sound like it's mandatory today. If we did nothing, what would happen? Besides these guys being severely inconvenienced and all that. But no one's come in to say, you cannot continue with this fire station. Nobody said that yet. Have they? So, you know, a voter's going to say, well, you've lived with it for decades. Why do we have to do this now? And why do we have to spend $40 million? It almost sounds like it's worse to try to fix it because then you might trigger something. You're better off leaving it the way it is and schlepping along and not being able to get the people you want because the building's in such poor condition and all the other things we've talked about.
I think this has been an ongoing project and need for more than 10 years. So I would be very reluctant to sort of put a halt on it and not go forward.
Yeah, if we put it off, it's only going to be worse.
Yeah, well, that's what we found out. If we'd have bought it 10 years ago, it would cost us $15 million. Now we're at 40.
Well, the question that has come up to me is, was that $11 million for costs or was it total cost? Did that $11 million figure that the town voted down include soft costs?
I don't know. Don't remember.
I kind of don't think so. I kind of think it was hard costs, but I'm not positive on that. We can check that. But
Probably though, when that vote came up, I don't know how long ago it was, that was probably a shocking number too.
It was.
$10, $11 million.
It
Oh my God.
That was 8 years
so
ago.
much money.
yeah,
8 years.
and there was
Yeah.
next to nil in terms of public engagement or information that got out ahead of time too. People didn't know. I mean, from my point of view, it was kind of like, you know, hitting you over the head all of a sudden. It's like, where's this coming from? I mean, there was some idea that, you know, people were meeting and trying to do something about it, but I don't think there was anywhere near the level of PR and engagement that we've been trying to do this time. And we've got to, in my mind, we've got to gear up and do even more. You know,
Quite a bit more. And there was no written report for feasibility
Right.
study. The only thing that was presented to the town, and for that, I think it was about $80,000, was a PowerPoint presentation.
Right. So we never saw a written report, I don't know.
There was none generated.
Yeah.
But it probably was going to cost $11 million. I mean, it's probably a good number at the time.
Yeah.
And it still was enough to shock people.
But we don't know, because we don't have a record of it, whether that was included the soft cost. It could have been 11 million, and then we would have been tasked with also funding the soft costs. Not sure. But anyway, that is water over the dam, and now, because of escalation and the way things are, we are almost quadruple the cost. Scott, do you have any
Rich relatives?
any guidance?
Already asked.
Lottery tickets.
Do you have any guidance to offer?
40 million is a lot of money, but realistically, it's also we're not gonna build anything for less than 20 or $25 million. If you look around the state, Brockton's 110 million, where was it? Lennox is 25 million, Taunton is 50 million.
Dedham just completed one for 51 million.
I mean, and that's already been planning for years
Yeah.
in advance, so, yeah, if we could get it down to 30 million, that seems more in proportion, but also it's not gonna be a $5 million project. It's gonna be an expensive project no matter what, to just put the shovel in the ground and get something started. I mean, even if you're just gonna do a basic building like Southampton, that's a $5 to $10 million budget right there.
Incomplete.
Incomplete, and you double that for a police station, you're gonna get $20 million.
Dedham's a lot different than Southampton, though.
Well, I'm talking about next door to
West
West
Hampton.
Hampton.
Yeah, you said Dedham earlier.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Dedham, and there's a
Yeah, but
lot.
that's already completed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So-
Hingham is 50 million. So it seems like it's either very expensive or very bare bones throughout the state. There's no middle ground for a town our size. Just
Well,
seems like-
except Lee, and that's roughly this 33
25, 30,
million.
yeah.
Well, that is the reality of it. So Reggie, to your point, you know, is the town willing to provide our emergency services, service staff with what is needed? You know, a decent facility. This is not decent.
No, I agree with that. I would also counter, though, that is not the question you need to put to the voters. Voters would say, sure, we'd love them to have good facilities, but the question is, are you willing to spend $40 million to have a new facility, a beautiful new facility?
Well, so it's going to last for how many years? What's the projection on this?
Yeah.
30,
30.
Yeah.
30 years, maybe? I don't know.
Over how many years would the cost be spread?
Depends who you talk to. I mean, it can be significant, I mean, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, I think, but then if you want to talk about saving money, now you're paying on interest. So,
Right.
You probably wouldn't go more than 30 years, or I would
No.
think.
I don't think you do.
No.
So I wonder, you know, over, let's say 30 years, I mean, what other big ticket things are going to come up during that time that would add to the,
senior center,
Potentially.
do we,
you know, town hall.
how many years,
20 years from now.
how many years before we have to replace a school like Morris?
And we're doing lots of repairs up there. I mean, a lot of our special town meeting money and annual town meeting money goes
So
to
if we're
repairs.
carrying this, and then all of a sudden, okay, now we gotta spend another 50 million on a new Norris school,
Yeah.
that's where it gets
Maybe a lot more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot more than that. And we're talking about broadband, you know, for town. That was when we did our community survey. Broadband was one of the top requests of townspeople.
Sewer line.
Sewer lines, you know, I mean, all these things are, you know, out there in terms of needs and wants, you know. So.
We don't need sewers.
Well, I mean, that might actually reduce the cost if you don't have to do a septic.
Right.
It
So
wouldn't
that might
be, it wouldn't be installed by the time that it would benefit us, would it? Well, I mean, even the feasibility, even the potential plan for it would not be timed such that we could take advantage of it. Because
For
if they,
September, no. No, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that would have to go right, but.
but what I mean is, well, is that true? Because what this has been quoted on is the fall of 2025 construction start. And the sewer is not, we'll still have to put in a septic system and a tight tank and stormwater. All of that will have to go in regardless of whether eventually a sewer line goes in. I don't think the timing of that will work to our advantage.
I think, you say the fall of 2025?
Yeah.
That's what's projected here. I think.
That's very ambitious. If
Yeah.
we just get the funding for the architecture
Yeah.
in
But
this fall.
that's how they've costed it out.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because they were allowing about an 8 or 9 month period for the owner's project manager getting the architect. So
Yeah.
that was, you know, over the winter, essentially.
Yep.
Spring, by summer, by this time next year, we should have the architect in place, theoretically, according to what they've.
And that's what they say in the report, is
Right.
that they are urging us to move forward with all due haste
Yeah.
because of cost.
But yeah, getting the money first is the question.
Right, so
Yeah.
You know, I think, you know, having a sewer come in, that's a cost savings. We're going back to Reggie's statement that the septic system isn't the make or break on the project.
Right.
Tight tank is 25,000, the
Right.
septic system, another 25, 40, 50,000. So, you know, 100 and some odd thousand, that's not much of a $40 million project.
but it wouldn't, we couldn't even take advantage of those small savings, I
Right,
don't
if
think.
we-
They
if we-
have to
If we did it
go.
before the sewer, correct.
Yeah,
We still have to do stormwater, sewer has nothing to do with stormwater.
that is correct.
Right, because all we're trying to do now is do the feasibility study to see whether it's possible to build that trunk line sewer into the rail line area, right, going up to Coleman Road. So it's that's a feasibility study. That could come back and say, forget it, or it's another $30 million just to do that.
Right.
So that's a different, decision point, right? But I guess all I want to be sure is that we're not hanging the progress of any facility on this building to that sewer line. I mean, if we have to put in a septic, we put in the septic. And if the sewer comes later on for affordable housing or whatever else gets developed there, more power to us. But I don't want this kind of facility to be held hostage to, waiting for maybe the sewer might show up someday.
The sewer extension process, so they have to be agreement between the two towns, and the DEP has to weigh in on it.
Let alone the butters and God knows what all we got. I mean, I don't know what that takes, but I'm sure it's not easy.
Yeah, it's a long-term.
Enterprise areas for paying for the sewer.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think we just have to recognize that it's a great idea, and we need to do it in parallel, but it shouldn't be, something that holds us back, I think.
On that note.
Oh, yes. 5:15.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank
You
you.
didn't solve it.
What's that?
You didn't solve it.
To be continued.
Okay.
So I guess we're sort of going in a circle. We're trying to figure out where, can somebody throw a dart out there and say, let's just try this? Those guys, well, where's some suggestion we would go? I mean, you made a suggestion. Let's talk about, let's throw X number of millions at renovating. Is that something we should put on the table as a thought process to think of between now and, should that be put in our thought process before we're going straight forward? I'm just trying to think,
Right.
we've been.
Well,
someone will ask a question. I think through the process, someone will ask that question.
Yeah.
What could you do?
Well, the feasibility study does define pretty well what the great disadvantages of this lot are, right? The bedrock, the wetlands, the
That's to build a
tiered.
whole new facility on that property. Then.
I know, but there's
Put
no
it back.
no question, but that would have to be expanded, and that presents the same problems.
If you were going to put in the police with this building?
No, just even making it a facility that's adequate for the town.
We can blast it out 30 more feet and put in another bay and, I'm making it sound really easy.
I think
Put a second trailer there. I mean, how hard is that?
Nice trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the report mentions that, I mean, that,
1864 schoolhouses don't make the best bones for
Yeah.
you.
and the fact that the wastewater is just a PVC pipe that connects the trailer to
The what?
there's just a PVC pipe that connects the facilities to the fire station too. It said about a visible, the report.
Well, they hooked the trailer into the septic system.
Right.
Right.
It's all cobbled.
Yeah.
So,
So, and I toured both facilities, and it was obvious what the issues were. The police station didn't seem that bad. It just was very dated. And I know they've got some issues that they want to do. And maybe someone will say, why don't you just concentrate on fire? Maybe, police have a big building. They've got what I think is kind of a cool building. Probably fix that and build a new fire.
It'll still never be code compliant. It has, because part of it is that a structure has to be, I don't know the language for this, but it has to withstand earthquake.
The seismic.
Yeah, and it will never do that.
No, but the state can't make you build a new building at this point. So, they've made it so expensive to build something new that it ties your hands. Like, I don't really want to do that. I'm going to have to live with what I got. Because we'd have to spend tens of millions of dollars when you could spend a lot less on the buildings you have, but because you're tripping some code thing. I mean, I personally have a problem with that, but the police station seems functional in a way, but some simple fixes could get it Well, it really does, it's whether you
I'm
can
not
do
sure the
that.
chief will agree with you on
Well, I
that
don't
one.
know if we're going down the road for a new feasibility study to renovate both buildings to the best extent practicable. I'm throwing it out there. I mean, I don't like the idea. I think it's throwing good money after bad.
I mean, I think you're gonna have some issues with the police station because the historic nature of the building. You
Yeah,
really want to be able to
history,
do much.
you got an elevator and everything else.
Yeah.
A
It just
lot of
hides your
issues.
hand. It's like, wow. But I also heard when these guys were talking that there isn't a lot of synergy between the two. The police has to be very separate from anybody else, from the public, the general public, including the fire staff. So it didn't seem like there was all that much synergy that could be. I know the building costs are probably less because you're building it all at once. But it's not like there's a lot of interaction or coverage between the two.
One
Some
thing that
shared utilities and shared
Yeah.
core areas.
Common areas.
And also the point that HKT made is that there's always someone in the will always be someone in the building. And when dispatch left the police station, I just thought if I was being pursued and I needed to run to the police station for safety and I got in there and found that there was no one in there, that would be really, really disconcerting. And so when they stated that if there, there's a measure of security in that, I thought, oh yeah, there will at least be help in that building, whereas there isn't necessarily so now that dispatch has left town.
I think that bears back to your statement last time about, what are the concrete reasons that we need? What are the concrete benefits that not just the public servants, but the town is going to get from this? And not just to make our first responders more comfortable, is to make the entire town. Obviously, they need a decent facility. But you brought up an example.
Well, somebody needs like for a house in this town. Does it make a big difference to say, oh, they got a brand new public safety facility? I think that's great. I really want to buy this house now. I'm willing to pay an extra $50,000 for it or whatever. Doesn't really work that way, but you should feel good about the community you're living in. You want to have good facilities. And that's important. It's just hard to quantify what that's worth.
Yeah, it doesn't have as much of an impact as schools.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard to
Yeah.
quantify some of that. So I did just pull up the PowerPoint presentation from 2015. It has a budget page on it. They put in a 10% design contingency. It's a 23,000 GSF, so gross square foot. Building, $380 to $400 per square foot. Site and construction, $9 million, soft costs $1,050,000, furnishings and equipment $750,000, total $10,008,000.
So it's triple. $307 a square foot to $1,000 a square foot.
Yeah, I remember when we were first soliciting architects, I called this architect and said, it went from 600 to 1,200. You're
Yeah.
going to be shocked. I brought that number to the committee.
Yeah, it's not,
It's not cheap.
COVID didn't help us. Supply chain delays didn't help us. I mean, all
Right.
sorts of things, have made this the real reality now. Yeah. But just to answer that question about whether soft costs were put in here, so some of them are.
I don't think that include like a project manager, because that wasn't necessarily a requirement back at the time. That's become more and more of a.
It did, no, it says OPM and clerk fees,
Okay.
200,000.
Okay.
A&E fees, which are what?
Architect and engineer fees.
810,000, legal and bonding 25,000, and other surveying, testing, printing 15,000. So, but I mean, 750,000 is for furnishing and equipment. That's not realistic, I wouldn't think, for today's market on what we've got to get put in there. So, but yeah, the square foot going, from 4,000 to 1,000, 400 rather to 1,000 per square foot.
Well, maybe what would make sense is to have a public meeting and present kind of where we are today, because I don't think we're going to get much new information that'll change kind of the basic framework of what we're trying to do. And,
That's
present it
essential.
positively and listen to feedback, and it'll get buzz going in the community, and if there's a groundswell for it or against it, at least you can.
And I wonder too, because task 7, which we haven't really completed yet, that's supposed to be that comparison with other communities. I mean, maybe that's kind of the focus of another public forum, is taking a look at, here's where we are, here's what we have looked at. I mean, this would be a good part of a discussion, would be, these are the kind of costs that we found from other communities. And, at least
This is the reality.
get that word out there. I mean, I don't know.
Well, but there's some significant differences in square footage,
Sure, yeah.
primarily, I think.
Yeah.
Granby's like 18.
Right, and that's why I'm not sure that our little chart is going to be, that's not going to be intuitive to anybody who's reading this cold. I mean, I think we have to explain
And then
that.
Granby is, 2 years ago, we're talking 3 years from now, what our cost is going to be.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly. I know, so, but yeah, I mean, I think we have to say, looking at the costs from whatever whatever communities we put on that chart, what we were trying to compare, and here's where some of the differences are, but nonetheless, this is what they were paying, but this is what they were getting for their money too, in terms of whether it was only fire or only police or whatever it was costing them.
And I believe, I'm trying to pull into my brain, this is a long time ago now, but I believe it has been looked into, and maybe as long ago as the prior feasibility study, the possibility of renovating these 2 buildings. I don't think that has not been done.
Yeah.
Was that done by this other company, you think? Or?
Well, or by the previous Public Safety Building Committee. But unfortunately, Charlie was chair at that time, and he doesn't seem to be able to find all the records.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he may have something on that. We could ask him about that, to see if that case has been put before the town and whether there is some factual information that we can reuse. But I think for those of us who have been here forever, this is sort of the progression. I mean, we knew we needed a new facility back in 2015. And those same questions would have to be re-answered because they have been asked before. But everybody needs to know. Everybody needs to have good answers, and we do have to have good answers.
I mean, the reality is that the people, the majority that voted it down in 2015, most of them probably still live here. So you can have the same questions that, however that went in 2015.
Process for that wasn't so great. They didn't do any good,
So
they didn't
maybe
do a
that's
good job in
difference.
building public support.
Yeah.
I do have a report, it's the Public Safety Committee report to the Selectmen in October 2012. So I do have that report, and I haven't read it lately. Somebody gave it me way back when. But this is when they were looking at 3 locations at the time, I think, which was not only here, but they were looking at the Grange site, which is a little postage stamp across the road, which is
And the highway
small.
department.
And the landfill, I think, so the transfer station.
Oh, for a while they did look into the highway
Oh,
department.
that too, maybe.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, highway garage, yes, you're right. Town hall parcel, highway garage parcel, and the landfill parcel. Okay, not the Grange, then I'm wrong. Those 3. So they did take a look at that, and apparently this report goes into some of their findings. I'll shoot this around just for information's sake. Not sure when I got it, but it's a little lower than what is have a conclusion is the question. What does it have for a conclusion? I don't know. But anyway, no, I think, certainly there was a whole lot more happening in terms of just general information about what was going on. I think the public meeting we had was a great opportunity. And in fact, whenever we get around to whatever our point is to make some feedback on this report, that whole public meeting is lacking. There's no discussion of it that I read in the report.
Right.
And I think it needs to be there. That was a significant event, I think, in our deliberations. there's a lot of statistics here, and blah, blah, blah.
And we do need to take some time to review that, at least minimally.
Yeah. When are they expecting us to get back to, have we?
Well, as soon as possible. I've been in touch with Amy, and I know they're just waiting on us, and we've had a rather long pause now,
Right.
and I did tell her today that we were meeting today and would come back with questions and comments, and we can't, I mean, I think it's our duty to respond to what they presented to us now weeks ago.
Right. No, I think so, because they're waiting on certain things, for clarity from us too.
Yes, and Amy wants, I've asked Cindy for the latest, most updated draft of Task 7, because we have to get that to them, and I asked Amy if they would write a narrative or whether we had to accompany the chart. I was wondering if that could just go in with the other appendices, if they could just, I don't know that it has to be within the body of their report, but it can be a chart. I don't know. I don't know where it will go. They didn't address things task by task, I don't think, in their report. But anyway, I gotta get me back on track here. Where are we?
We need to schedule, when would we have a second public information meeting? And then, it's a simple question, when and what are we going to present?
Well, that is true. So that is a question about a public forum. The public forum that we did present, I thought, was very informative. HK, were you there, Reggie?
I wasn't there, but I watched
it.
Video.
So the video was informative, and HKT's presentation was informative. So what beyond that can we, and it was poorly attended, 40 people.
Yeah, so you're going to have maybe supporters there, and I don't think there was any discussion of cost.
Well, it was mentioned, it was put
mentioned?
out, yes.
Oh, it was, that's right.
No,
Well, I
Amy
remember
went
seeing
into
this
the
trend,
thing.
yeah.
Surprised there wasn't an uproar.
No,
Yeah.
she made a whole thing of the price of doing nothing. That was one of her closing
Yeah.
points.
Yeah.
That's right. I
Cost
do
of doing
remember
nothing.
that.
I mean, we might want to think about maybe doing a virtual one. I mean, 40 people
Yeah,
on a, Tuesday or Wednesday night
yeah.
versus, 1,000 on the side of the road on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we had 1,200 views or something of that crazy little video. So
Yeah, so I think it might
there's
be.
different ways to do it.
Yeah.
Right. So before we plan another forum, do we need to discuss timing? So forum and new brochure in relation to special town meeting and election if it passes, so that they're timed so that most effectively.
Sure.
Given the challenge that lies before us, do we want to try to squeeze in special town meeting in September or early October?
I think that's my question is, can we be ready by then, or will the voters be ready by that time to pass it? We can present anything, but can we and the voters be informed enough to make a decision?
I have an opinion. Would anyone like to weigh in? Chief, what do you think? Do you have an opinion?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
John, do you?
I agree with Mark. We have to schedule when we can make a good, strong case.
That, Chris?
I guess I would, in my head, I would find it hard to do another town, I mean, not a public forum is one thing, but a town meeting. I think I'd find that hard to do before we close on the property.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we have to get through September 30th, close, get our borrowing in place for that, get that out of the way, and see what that real borrowing is, because by then, right now, we're estimating what it might be, right? We don't know. So we would at least have that piece of information in hand before we had another town meeting where we had to go ask for more money.
Right.
But I think somewhere between there, so maybe October, maybe a public forum could be possible, a special town meeting, maybe November or December, before Christmas. But I mean, mid-November or something like that, maybe. I mean, I don't know. Would be an idea as a possible time frame. I think another public forum has to happen, but maybe,
Yes.
like Scott said, see if we can do a virtual one. I mean, certainly this summer, nothing's going to happen. Everybody's going.
Correct. Well, that's
So
the other
there's
factor.
nothing to do between now and the end of August, I think, in terms of the public getting the people together. Not that we can't do mailings and, other website stuff or Facebook stuff, but getting anybody together before the end of September, I think is tough. Offhand. I mean, that's my first thought, I guess.
I guess I'm questioning another forum because that information hasn't really changed.
No,
So what would be
Not yet.
What would be the goal of the second forum? Just get more people aware?
maybe, well, that's what we would have to decide.
Yeah.
That is one of our tasks. So, given that the first forum was quite informative, I mean, that presented what information. Now we can add, we've got the land,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Let's just backtrack a little bit to timing of moving forward with a special town meeting and when we want to present it to the public. Do you have a comment to make on that?
I guess it's sort of an obvious statement that this thing gets kicked down the road. We've been working on this since 2012. I don't know if there's going to be a good time to pull the trigger, but I think we should be ready. I just don't know, like you mentioned, that no one's going to be around till September.
Right.
And so there's really nothing we can do for outreach. We can be prepared for outreach in September.
Right.
Yeah.
And do we need to start outreaching a year before or 3 weeks before the election? That's another question. The ideas get stale. So how soon before the special town meeting should we really be hitting the pavement? Because if we hit it right now, by September, people are going to forget what we did.
Well, it seems to me as though we need to do it methodically and indeed to get the land in place. So that's even an argument, right? That now finally there is a place to build a new facility on when there hasn't been prior to this, and that's been a long process. There was talk about trying to get it onto the ballot in November. I think that's a bad idea. I think that's really pushing it again. There have been several times when we've tried to push this forward and we have pulled back effectively. And since there is such a challenge with the price, and Reggie makes good points here, I mean, we all acknowledge that we have an enormous challenge ahead of us, and we have to figure out how to meet the challenge and make our best case. It would be nice to have the rest of the committee here too, to weigh in on that, but about timing for a special town meeting and election, if it's favorable, and then backtrack a little bit and set public forum and a second brochure and start to figure out what would take place at the public forum that would add to what we've already presented, that would be persuasive. What I would like is to have, and what I was wishing for at the forum, was that there were more attendees, so questions, we would know what our challenges were, but we had almost no pushback. So we really had nothing new. We didn't know what we were up against. And by viewing it afterwards, we didn't get any feedback. So for us, it was not that informative, and we need to have that kind, we need to be able to respond to people's concerns. All right, so we're not going to make any decisions tonight, correct? We know, I'm not sure about what we're just doing loops at this point.
Yeah, and I think just one thing, I think we had talked at one point about putting this on the ballot for the state primary, which would be September, which is,
No.
that's off the table. I don't know if we were ever talking about the presidential in November.
I think,
We might have been, but
I think so.
September was one of the early thoughts we had about putting it on for the state primary, which is, that's that's not a possibility. I don't think that makes any sense for what we want to do. As a focus though, so let's just think about this for a minute. So right now we've got a brochure that's got to get out. So say in the next 10 days there's a brochure that goes out the door. So that's something, people get that. If we were to have a forum, maybe you could do it like a mid-September or something, but to get people in the know that, hey guys, we're about ready to close on this land, in 2 more weeks, it's going to be real. So we could either do it right before that and say, okay, this is what our borrowing shows us, and this is really what the impact is going to be on the average taxpayer. But we should know that by that point in time, what that real dollar figure is for the land, okay? So we can either do that like mid-September before we close, or do it mid-October after we close, as far as I'm concerned, either one. But I think the other focus of a public forum would be to talk about what Rachel raised. It's like, what have we looked at? I think it has to focus on cost. I mean, I don't know any more design stuff or any more the problems, the need. We're past that, I think. There's probably several people in town that still don't have a clue about it, but I think we've done all we can do to make that case, I think, right now. And I think we have to take it to the next step, which would be something related to cost. And it's like, we've done this, this is what it's telling us. In the meantime, we've looked at X, Y, and Z, and this is what we're coming out with, and take the questions related to that. I mean, it's not going to be an easy forum, frankly, I don't think, because I think it's going to generate a lot of questions. But we have a responsibility to answer those questions, I think.
Yes, we do.
Scott did a nice one-pager for the land acquisition.
Right.
If we did the same one-pager for this project, that would provide a lot of information to people. It might not be positive from our perspective, but it'll say, an average house, you're going to pay $1,000 more a year in tax. People are going to go, oh my God, I don't have $1,000 extra. So, I mean, because it's going to be a really big number. When you put it on the average house, it's going to be a lot of money. But I think whatever we present, it should be, as clear and with as much information as possible. And be able to talk about the alternatives and why we think it makes sense.
So anyway, that would be an option in terms of the focus of the forum.
Is there, when I first came to town last winter, I think there was a special town meeting. It seemed like it was in the winter time. When was that? February?
Maybe February.
Do you have to have is it typical that you would have a special town meeting
in the fall?
In the winter, fall? Because you've got all this cleanup, it seems like, needs to be done.
Yeah. Sometimes we would definitely have something if not in November, we'd probably have it in January, February. That's been kind of the trend. Yeah.
So that should be the goal.
We wouldn't have to wait until May to the regular town election time. We would have probably a special election.
But if you had a meeting with other items on the to be discussed.
Right. No, it would be,
Yeah. And include it with that, because there were some big items in that one. I think that was the one with the
override for
with the land. I think the conserved land, wasn't that in the special town meeting or in the regular town meeting?
I remember.
Special. Yeah. That was a big deal, and that was controversial to some degree, not too much, but.
So so there'd be a special town meeting, but so a special town meeting could be anywhere from the fall to, whatever, early winter, and then we'd still have the ballot though in May. That's what I'm trying to say, right? I mean, we wouldn't want to probably run another special election, right? We did one. I don't know if we want to do another one. So I think we'd have to wait for the real election normally in May. to vote on the cost.
I mean, all you really need is 2 weeks to call a special town meeting.
Yeah, special town meeting's not hard to pull together, relatively. I mean, the challenge is the timing, because I think you're right. I mean, once you present something, you got people all kind of fired up and they're interested. You don't want too much of a lag time, because then it's like, oh, well, I forgot about that. And then there's another set of, issues or something that comes up. So I think we really have to, get a massive calendar here and sort of think about what what makes sense. But anyway, I think that should be a further discussion maybe when we get together again as well.
Yeah,
looking at that.
let's
Looking at task 7 in more detail and certainly going through the report and figuring out what other feedback we need to give them.
Well, I do need to get back to them,
Yeah.
and so I'm going to at least, do people, have they read it carefully enough have you read it carefully enough to have comments that need to be made to them? Chris has brought up 2 already. One, that they've got the 29,000 square feet, which still includes the carports and the shooting range. And so that, I have to question those figures, the way they've listed them, and that there was no mention of the public forum, and that should be included.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other?
We had talked last time about asking HKT to either video or discuss the cost comparison between us and Williamsburg.
Lee?
Lee, I guess,
Lee.
yeah. We said there was
Yeah. So we had the written part, but we haven't discussed it with them. They gave us their written.
Right, yeah, we were still a little kind of cute, brought up a couple of questions about the escalation cost in one versus the escalation costs in the other.
Right, the escalation cost in Lee was 4 to 6% annually.
I don't know if we need to follow up on that or not.
Well, we had talked about meeting with them, so those would be questions that would be asked directly to them, I think. But what I think, I suspect they're anxious to tie up this feasibility report, and I think we need to.
Would a project like this require paying prevailing wages?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's part of our.
That's the cost as well.
That's a big cost.
Yeah.
And Mark Mancino was making the point that being a green community, is that what we're called, a green community, also escalates.
We had to go beyond stretch code because we're a green community.
And we've got the energy stretch code, and then we've got stuff in town in terms of whatever bylaws and things that we have to follow too.
To my mind, it was generally thorough and well-written. It needs to include task 7, and Chris's points are very accurate. But nothing popped out as being deficient to my mind.
No, I mean, there are a couple of typos, like they've got College Avenue in a couple places rather than College Highway. Little minor, there were a couple places like that. The one thing I guess I thought about too is that it felt to me like the executive summary was a bit too long. That I felt like by the time I got into the body of the report, I'd already read that.
Yes.
So I think there's something in those first 8 pages, which is the executive summary, that could be maybe, I don't know, consolidated better.
Well, I think, now I didn't go back, but I think that the conclusion really reiterated some of what was in the first few pages.
Yeah.
So, but is that something that we want to request changes on?
I don't know.
I mean, they've prepared it. It may not be what it's thorough, and even if it's redundant, or I'm not sure we should be kind of editing it for them. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that was just my reaction when I read it. It's like I got to some place and I remember something about the L-shaped, but I was like, I already read that.
Yes,
That.
yes.
It's like, you know, it made me go back and search. It's like, well, okay, I mean, it's fine to pull a, you know, a bit of a summary out of the different tasks that we did and put it in the executive summary, but I think the methodology and all that stuff, I don't know, I guess, I'm not sure how these reports usually read, but, you know, we want it so it's digestible for anybody who wants to read it. And so, you know, it's a 30, I mean, the basic report is 30 pages, and there's God knows how many other pages of.
But that's just supporting documents, so I didn't read the appendices, did you? No, I don't, they're
No, I mean, I think we went through them already. We lived them, right? So-
Yeah, it was the PowerPoints, and I wonder, was the public forum in that?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either,
I
but they
don't
can, so maybe they can include that too, but at least make mention of it. But that, the public forum could be included, a statement, or, well, no, because there really wasn't.
Well, they could put it.
That was their PowerPoint from
Yeah,
that, I think
I
was
don't
in
remember
there.
if their PowerPoint was in it. I don't know. I have to look at that. I don't think their PowerPoint was in the report. What? I don't know.
Some of their PowerPoints were.
Yes, but for the public forum, I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
That's what I don't know.
Okay.
I honestly didn't double check that myself.
Do we want to have a meeting with them? Do we want to have them join us to review Lee and the report?
I think unless we have specific questions for them, it's like,
What's the point?
Re-present what they've already presented.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where we are, where we stand on Lee, if we are satisfied with their responses to that, or if we have more questions to ask them about that. So,
I think,
I was satisfied.
yeah.
I mean, it illustrates a number of differences.
I mean, I think they tried to compare, they tried to present what they knew. I mean, there was
Yeah.
various things that they made a comment, and I was like, well, we can't really compare apples to apples here because we don't know how they got to those figures.
Exactly.
I think that, I mean.
You can't have a
I don't know what else I can
comparison.
say about that. I mean, I felt it was a fairly honest presentation of what they were trying to look at. So, I don't know.
Well, okay, so do I go ahead? Again, it's unfortunate that we're such a small group here today. I'll make these points to them, and then do I give them the go-ahead to button it up? We would have to vote on that, and maybe we shouldn't vote on it until
I think I'd rather
everybody's
have
here.
the full committee here.
I would prefer to do that as
Yeah.
well. So that, I'll mention that to them, that we were a small group and we didn't have.
I mean, maybe we can not wait too long for another meeting.
Exactly.
to be
Well,
able to tie it.
I felt that this was too long a pause, given, I mean, it's great
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
We know we have
Yeah.
a successful conclusion to the land negotiations, and that's a huge, huge step forward. Okay, so moving forward, is there any other business that needs to be addressed this evening? That can't wait till the next meeting? And we'll schedule the next meeting and hope everyone can attend. We'll do it by our best judgment. Do you want to try for not this upcoming Monday, but the Monday after that?
What day would that be? That would be
Well, that would be July 8th.
Sounds like a possibility.
I won't be there.
I'm open.
How about the fall? Let's just see, with the next Monday? Reggie, will you be here the
Yes.
next Monday? Will everyone be here? Do we want to delay that long?
Well, the other choice would be the first, which is around the corner, which I don't think we can do.
No, I don't think we would have anything more to work with.
No.
So the 15th?
15's only 2 weeks.
Well, that would be, is it only 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
Well, we're the
2.
27th today, so.
Right.
3
So a
days.
little,
It's almost just 2 weeks.
July 15th, is that
2.5
better
weeks.
for folks? Or good for folks?
If we can have most members here, that would be ideal, yeah, rather than.
Well, how about this? Shall I put forward, shall I send out an email to committee members to see which date the most people are free on? And we'll set it for July 15th, or whichever day has the most people. So July 8th or the 15th.
Yeah, why don't you try that, because we don't know what people's vacation schedules might be.
Right. It'll be a little
So,
more complicated.
I mean, we may not get everybody, but hopefully we'll have
Right.
enough people.
Hopefully we'll have more than we have today. All right, then, may I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.